let's see how our quality comes across. A little technical problems here getting everything rounded up. Anyways, this is no time for rational thinking, and I guess it's a good start, right? Today we've got James Sanders as guest, and we're going to take a look at the militia as they take a stand at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. Oh, I think, thanks. I don't think I hit show now, actually, too, by the way. So let me do that now. All right, that's done. Got pain. And, okay, so this is Volume 8, Episodes 1 and 2, and this is harm. We're looking at the harm of the government that's been coming against folks for quite some time. So, hashtags is helping United County halt harassment and against the Hammonds. This is Real Liberty Media for World Truth, and Vince Easley. Flash somebody's my host. James Sanders is joining us. Hey, James, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Vince, doing pretty good yourself?
Oh man, we're trying to wrangle this stuff up here. I guess you had computer problems and calling in by telephone. So good thing. Thanks, sir, for having us on the phone line. And I've got to catch myself back up here. I'm going to have to go, and I won't be able to do it now. So, anyways, I did a WordPress, and I did a lot of copy and pasting. There's a lot of folks out there that got a lot of good work out here that have put all this information together. So I've got a big long string of links in the copy and paste. And James has some pretty good stuff as well to share. James, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what we're doing here on the radio, that is.
Yeah, that line came through a bit garbled again.
Doggone it. All right. Well, I guess we'll just have to kick this old dog down the road anyways and do best we can. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to give an outline and we'll be able to talk together, you and I, as we come across some information that's pertinent that we'd like to add to. So I'm going to start it off. And this comes from the full story about what's going on in Oregon. Militia takeover. I actually changed the title from militia takeover to, what did I change it to? Let me see here real quick. Change it to militia take a stand at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. But that edit has not made it all the way around. Anyways, this is a short summary in an effort to draw attention to a ridiculous arrest of a father and son pair of Oregon ranchers. Dwight Lincoln Hammond, Jr., age 73, and his son Stephen Dwight Hammond, age 46. And they are not now scheduled to have surrendered themselves to begin a 5-year prison sentence. They turned themselves in on the 4th of January. 3 brothers from the Private Bunny family and approximately 150 and growing armed militia and former U.S. service members have taken, it says taking control here, but I say they've taken a stand at the refuge. And they're prepared to stay for a while. And let me give that shout out to what's going on in Oregon, militia takeover, Malheur. In protest of the Hammond family persecution. This is on WordPress if anybody wants any of the links. So I have the background, and like I said, this is a lot of copy and paste. Normally I don't like to read, but I think in this case I can present a little better information and be more precise and outline. So the history begins, the Harney Basin, where the Hammonds Ranch is established, was settled in the 1870s. The valley was settled by multiple ranchers and was known to have run over 300,000 head of cattle. These ranchers developed a state-of-the-art irrigation system to water the meadows, and soon it became a favorite stopping place for migrating birds on their annual trek north and south, because they go both ways, right? So 1908, that's where my grandpa was born, President Teddy Roosevelt, in a political scheme, creates an Indian reservation around the Malheur Mud and Harney Lakes and declared it as a preserve and breeding ground for native birds. Later, this Indian reservation, I think we're all Indians now, right? But anyways, this reservation without Indians, you might add, became what we now know as the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. In 1964, the Hammonds purchased a ranch in the Harney Basin. The purchase included approximately 6,000 acres of private property, 4 grazing rights on public land, and a small ranch house and 3 water rights. The ranch is around 53 miles south of Burns, Oregon. By the 1970s, nearly all the ranches adjacent to the Blitzen Valley were purchased by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and added to the National Wildlife Refuge. And that refuge covers over 187,000 acres and stretches over 45 miles long and 37 miles wide. The expansion of the refuge grew and surrounds to the Hammonds Ranch, being approached many times by the this is not coming together. I think there might be a typo in there, by the Fish and Wildlife Service. The Hammonds refused to sell. Other ranchers also chose not to sell. And this is the same thing that happened in Bunkerville with the Bundys and all the other ranchers. Clive and Bundy, of course, the last rancher standing. And this is a pattern we're seeing where they're seizing the wealth of the nations. And you know, I'll tell you the most probable reason for that is they need more security for this fake money that they call Federal Reserve notes that everybody carries around, and the only money that's allowed to be used is if you try to have another type of currency, you'll probably end up in prison. So, let's see, where did I leave off? So during the 70s, Fish and Wildlife Service, in conjunction with the Bureau of Land Management, took a different approach to get the ranchers to sell. Ranchers were told that grazing was detrimental to wildlife and must be reduced. 32 out of 53 permits were revoked, and many ranchers were forced to leave. Grazing fees were raised significantly for those who were allowed to remain. Refuge personnel took over the irrigation system, claiming it as their own. By 1980, a conflict was well on its way. Water allocation on the adjacent privately owned Sylvia's Plain, the Fish and Wildlife wanted to acquire the ranch lands on the plains there to add to their already vast holdings. Refuge personnel intentionally diverted the water to bypassing the vast meadows, directing the water into the rising smaller lakes. Within a few short years, the surface area of the lakes doubled. 31 ranchers on the Sylvia's Plains were flooded. Homes, corrals, barns, and graze land were washed away and destroyed. The ranchers that once fought to keep the Fish and Wildlife Service from taking their land now broke and destroyed, begged the Fish and Wildlife Service to acquire their useless ranches. In 1989, the waters began to recede, and now the once thriving privately owned Sylvia's Plains are a proud part of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, as claimed by the Fish and Wildlife Service. By the 1990s, the Hammers were one of the very few ranchers that still owned private property adjacent to the refuge. Susie Hammond, in an effort to make sense of what was going on, began compiling facts about the refuge. In a hidden public record, she found a study that was done by the Fish and Wildlife Service in 1975. The study showed that the no-use policies of the Fish and Wildlife Service on the refuge were causing the wildlife to leave the refuge and move to private property. The study showed that the private property adjacent to the Malheur Wildlife Refuge produced 4 times more ducks and geese than the refuge did. It also showed that the migrating birds were 13 times more likely to land on private property than on the refuge. When Susie brought this to the attention of the FWS and refuge personnel, her and her family became the subjects of a long train of abuses and corruption. So we'll stop right there for a minute, and then we'll pick back up in the 1990s. James, would you like to add anything at this point?
Not really the timeline. You know, like I told Vince, I'm real bad with that stuff.
That's okay.
But as we start to get into stuff, I'll comment.
You bet. Well, I'll keep going, and we got 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes, so we've got lots of time. But this is a pretty long, I've got a lot of information, and some of it will repeat. Thanks, James.
Well, I did toss in there the landrights.org stuff. A lot of the stuff with like the permits and stuff, they have actual direct links to the documents where, the Hammonds put in different permits, and, they basically mess with them about it, and that was messing with their livelihood.
Right. So I'm twisting one up here as I talk. Hey, thanks, James. He's a great guy over in Memphis, Tennessee, not far from here. So, let's see, we're going to back up to in the early 1990s, the Hammonds filed on a livestock water source and obtained a deed of the water right from the state of Oregon. When the Bureau of Land Management and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service found out that the Hammonds obtained new water rights near the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, they were agitated, became belligerent, and vindictive towards the Hammonds. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service challenged the Hammonds' right to the water in an Oregon State Circuit Court. The court found that the Hammonds legally obtained rights to the water in accordance with state law, and therefore the use of the water belongs to the Hammonds. In August of 1994, the BLM and FWS illegally began building a fence around the Hammonds water source. Owning the water rights and knowing that their cattle relied on that water source daily, the Hammonds tried to stop the building of the fence. Then BLM and FWS called the Harney County Sheriff's Department, had the white Hammonds, the father, arrested and charged with disturbing and interfering. See, now, when we get down further and we read these charges, well, they tell it in a whole different story right here. Now, let me just continue. Okay, so charged them with and arrested them with disturbing and interfering with federal officials or federal contractors, that is, 2 counts each of felony. He spent one night in the Deschutes County Jail, I think that's how I might pronounce that, in Bend, and a second night behind bars in Portland before he was hauled before a federal magistrate and released without bail. A hearing on the charges was postponed, and the federal judge never set another date. That's what happened, matter of fact, back in the late 1800s when Congress adjourned without setting a date to reconvene, and you'll look at how a court works in relation to Congress, then you have to set a date. There's so much legalese here that's so hard to understand, and I'm certainly far from competent to speak on the legalese of this, but I do have some understanding and getting more. And at this point, I would like to say thank you, Al Anthony. He's up in that part of the world, behind the woodshed, Sundays right here on Real Liberty Media every Sunday. Al Anthony, Lessons from Behind the Woodshed. Great job. His information is so foreign to most people that it takes. Well, I've been listening to him for a couple, 2 or 3 years now, I reckon, and it's getting easier to piece this together, and we're going to get to that too a little later, and it probably won't make a bit of sense to you because it is, like I said, things don't happen the way they're supposed to happen, and that's all by design. So anyway, I'll continue. Go ahead.
On the legal stuff, there is some things I will toss into that because of looking at the legal documents and testimony. Well, guys up there right now, and this ties into the legal part of things. Just recently, I've come to find out that there was, and this was events that PNC, the documentation that the militia gave to the locals there in authority. And one of the things in it that they pointed out was that there was a witness that saw some of the fires being set by BLM, and Patagny, the prosecutor, ended up knowing about this, but during pre-trial disclosure, he did not make that information available to the defense. So on that ground alone, part of their court case was flawed from the beginning because that testimony could have substantiated the fact that, the Hammonds weren't responsible. Okay?
Yeah.
Also with that, in the press release that the Department of Injustice from Oregon sent, they basically said, and, that's, of course, after the trial was over, that, they never accused the Hammonds of being, terrorists. And the prosecutor, Papaggi, never accused them. And then we never asked the jury if they were, terrorists either. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, you guys ended up resentencing them under terrorist law. So, how in the hell are you trying to suggest you didn't accuse them of being terrorists? And what's more, who assigned that label? I mean, did they have some trial by jury of their peers to determine that? And no, they did not. The other thing that I find interesting in the stuff is because the definition of terrorism in the law, you have the law and then you have intent. And that's why, when different things happen, like you accidentally kill somebody, it goes from murder to manslaughter, all right? And the intent is what determines whether or not you end up getting sentenced under the murder accusation or whether it's a manslaughter because it was kind of like a noose, but you still did it, okay? This is a similar situation with them is that, okay, by definition, terrorism, the targets specifically in the definition suggest either the state or people. And what I find very interesting as I was reading through the testimony and such, nobody ever bothered to bring up the fact, wait a minute, with the intents, their target, when they set the fires, it was not, government land, it was not people. It was one situation, was supposed to, from my understanding, be just an management issue where they were just managing the land through a process that ranches out there do, and I guess in a lot of other places as well, from what I've read. And the other target was a fire started by lightning strikes. So even by the definition, okay, Judge Hogan in his lower sentencing was, I don't think he got to yet, but the man had common sense. And that's why he did sentence them under the terror guidelines. Okay, that was, I found that interesting. And the other thing too is, okay, well, what's to say that the lightning strikes during the back burn on the one weren't the one that wasn't what created the fire and caused the fire to jump onto, the supposed BLM managed land? That's not in there either. So, those are two glaring things to me, and go ahead.
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead. Is that you, Flash?
Yeah, my dog's getting some. Sorry.
So you'll hear this, you'll see this before you hear it. How's the audio there in chat, folks? See how we're doing here. Now come back. Now, there's a lot of information here, and I did include. In order to not be biased here, I tried to include sources that were taking a view from other sides too. So the government, they paint a much bleaker picture. But let me continue here. And this comes, by the way, from the Bundy Ranch blogspot. Also, Thomas Lagavera Stewart, great guy over at RBN, Resurrect the Republic. He and I were out in Buckerville together, and a lot of other great folks. I've got folks headed up that way right now that today, actually, from Vegas. And once they land in, we'll be getting some communication from the actual reserve there. But okay, so now I'll continue. This is deep, part D. Okay, so the FWS also began restricting access to upper pieces of the Hammonds' private property. In order to get the upper part of the Hammonds' ranch, they had to go on. In order to get to the upper part of the Hammond Ranch, they had to go on a road that went through the refuge. FWS began barricading the road and threatening the Hammonds if they drove through it. The Hammonds removed the barricades, gates, and continued to use the right of access. The road was proven later to be owned by the county of Harney, and this further enraged the BLM and FWS. Shortly after the road and water disputes, BLM and FWS arbitrarily revoked the Hammond's upper grazing permit without any given cause. Court proceedings or court rulings, as a traditional fence-out state, Oregon requires no obligation on the part of an owner to keep his or her livestock within a fence or to maintain control over the movement of the livestock. That's open range, okay? So the Hammonds intended to still use their private property for grazing. However, they were informed that a federal judge ruled in a federal court that the federal government did not have to observe the Oregon fence-out laws. Those laws are for people. Better look that word up, people, not for them. And the Hammonds were forced to either build and maintain miles of fence or be restricted from the use of their private property, cutting their ranch almost in half. I want to click this right here. I'll be right back. This is from Corey Gunnels in the Bundy Ranch protest. Oops, I think she put it the wrong one. This is geoengineering. That's right. Corey Gunnels is amazing. She is really a go-to for information. She is tireless on the geoengineering going on above us and around us, and also in keeping all the pertinent information updated here for what's going on there. Okay. So let's see where I leave off at. So just cutting the ranch almost in half, they could not afford to fence the land, so the cattle were removed. As someone who's built many miles of fence, I'm going to tell you, a good 5-string barbed wire fence is going to run for about a mile. It's going to cost pretty near about $20,000 to build that in labor and material. So you're talking a lot of money. A lot of money. I built 3.5 miles of fence, and one was like $80,000. So fencing ain't cheap, let me tell you. So the Hammonds experienced many years of financial hardship due to the ranch being diminished. The Hammonds had to scale back their ranch and home in order to purchase another property that had enough grass to feed their cattle. This property included 2 grazing rights on public land. Those were also arbitrarily revoked later. The owner of the Hammonds' original ranch passed away from a heart attack, and Hammonds made a trade for the ranch back. In the fall of 2001, Stephen Hammond, the son, called the fire department, informing him that he was going to be performing a routine prescribed burn on the ranch. Later that day, he started a prescribed fire on the private property. The fire went onto public land and burned 127 acres of grass, which out there in the high desert, you can't, you just don't think of this grass as what you're going to see out in your front yard for you city folks. It's scrub out there. There's sagebrush and no doubt chaparral, juniper. It takes a lot for a cow to make a living on that land out there. So you don't count how many cows you can run per acre or how many acres per cow, but how many sections of land that you need, which is a square mile for your cattle to run on. So the Hammonds put the fire out themselves. There was no communication about the burn from the federal government to the Hammonds at that time. Prescribed fires are a common method that Native Americans and ranchers have used in the area to increase the health and productivity of the land for many centuries. Now I'm going to tell you, out here in the country, I've burned hundreds of acres off of land myself and being involved in that. And it's something that's done, okay? So when you're working with cattle, and if you don't have any experience with that, then you may not understand all this. And so I hope I'm going to be able to give good enough explanation of this. So in 2006, a massive lightning storm started multiple fires that joined together and flaming the countryside. To prevent the fire from destroying their winter range and possibly their home, Stephen Hammond started a backfire on their property. And the fire was successful, and was successful in putting out the lightning fires that had covered thousands of acres within a short period of time. The backfire saved much of the range and vegetation needed to feed the cattle. So you can't just burn it off anytime. There's a time and place for everything, right? So you're generally going to burn right before your green up, and that's going to eliminate a lot of that dead scurvy stuff and allow for everything to grow back fresh and green and just lovely for all the little romping rabbits and the bouncing deers and all the other buffalo and everybody else that's home on the range. And here comes the cattle. So, they needed that to feed the cattle through the winter. So, I guess I was wrong there. That wasn't spring. They must have done it in the fall time to save that, which was going to be burned. All right, so Stephen's mother, Susan Hammond, said the backfire worked perfectly and it put out the fire and saved the range and possibly their home. The next day, federal agents went to the Harney County Sheriff's Office and filed a police report making accusations against Dwight and Stephen Hammond for starting the backfire. A few days after the backfire, Range Con from the Burns District, what is Range Con? I'm not sure. The Range Con from the from the Burns District BLM office asked Stephen if he would meet him in town. This guy's name is French Glen. That's the town in French Glen for coffee. Stephen accepted. When leaving, he was arrested by the Harney County Sheriff Dave Glerup and BLM Ranger Orr. Sheriff Glerup then ordered him to go to the ranch and bring back his father. Both Dwight and Stephen were booked on multiple Oregon state charges. The Harney County District Attorney reviewed the accusations, evidence, and charges and determined that the accusations against Dwight and Stephen Hammond did not warrant prosecution and dropped all charges. In 2011, 5 years after the police report was taken, the U.S. Attorney's Office accused Dwight and Stephen Hammond of completely different charges. They accused them of being a terrorist under the Federal Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. That carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison and a maximum sentence of death. Wow. Dwight and Stephen's mugshots were all over the news next week, posing them as arsonists. Yeah. Started fire. I've got a fire. Well, I let it burn out, but I build a fire every day. I'm burning them through the winter. My stove. Does that make me an arsonist for lighting fires? Okay. So Susan Hammond, wife and mother, said, I'd walk down the street and go into the store and people I'd known for years would take extreme measures to avoid her. Shortly after the sentencing, Capital Press ran a story about the Hammonds. A person who identified as Greg Ullum posted 3 comments on the article. And I remember about this guy. Let's see if they include it. Calling the ranchers clowns, endangered firefighters, and other people in the area while burning valuable rangeland. Greg Ullum, a retired BLM heavy equipment operator, soon called. They're going to include it. Soon called Capital Press to complain that he had not made those statements or those comments and made a request that they be taken down from the website. Capital Press removed the comments and a search of the Internet Protocol address associated with the comments revealed it is owned by the BLM's office in Denver, Colorado. Alan said he is friends with the Hammond and was alerted to the comments by neighbors who knew him and knew that he wouldn't have written. Said he felt bad for him and they'd lost a lot and they're going to lose more. Alan said to the ranchers, "You're not terrorists. This is there's this hatred in the BLM for him and I don't get it." He said. Retired BLM employee said Jody Weil, deputy state director for communications at BLM's Oregon office, indicated to reporters that if one of their agents falsified the comments, they would keep it private, not inform the public. In September 2006, Dwight and Susan Hammond's home was raided. The agents informed the Hammonds they were looking for evidence that would connect them to the fires. The Hammonds later found out that a boot print and a tire track were found near one of the many fires. No matching boots or tires were found in the Hammonds' home or on their property. Susan Hammond later said, "I've never felt so violated in her life." She says, we are ranchers, not criminals. Stephen Hammond openly maintains his testimony that he started the backfire to save the winter grass from being destroyed, and that the backfire ended up working so well it put out the fire entirely altogether. Pardon me just one moment. It's like swallow. During the trial proceedings, federal court Judge Michael Hogan did not allow time for certain testimonies and evidence into the trial that would exonerate the Hammonds. Federal prosecuting attorney Frank Papagni was given full access for 6 days. He had ample time to use any evidence or testimony that strengthened the demonization of the Hammonds. The Hammonds' attorney was only allowed 1 day. Much of the facts about the fires, land, and why the Hammonds acted the way they did was not allowed into the proceedings and was not heard by the jury. For example, Judge Hogan did not allow time for the jury to hear or review certified scientific findings that the fires improved the health and productivity of the land, or that the Hammonds had been subject to vindictive behavior by multiple federal agencies for years. Federal attorneys Frank Papagni hunted down a witness that was not mentally capable to be a credible witness. That's a grandson and nephew, Dusty Hammond. And he testified that Stephen told him to start a fire. He was 13 at the time and 24 when he testified. 11 years later, at 24, Dusty had been suffering with mental problems for many years. He had estranged his family, and including his mother. Judge Hogan noted that Dusty's memories as a 13-year-old boy were not clear or credible. Should be more credible. He allowed the prosecution to continually use Dusty's testimony anyways. When speaking to the Hammonds about this testimony, they understood that Dusty was manipulated and expressed nothing but love for the troubled grandson. Judge Michael Hogan and Frank Papagni tampered with the jury many times throughout the proceedings, including during the selection process. Hogan and Papagni only allowed people in the jury who did not understand the customs and cultures of the ranchers or how the land is used and cared for in the Diamond Valley, and for that matter, throughout most of the world. All of the jurors had to drive back and forth to Pendleton every day. Some drove more than 2 hours each way. By the 8th day, they were exhausted and expressed desires to be home. June 22nd of 2012, Dwight and Stephen were found guilty of starting both the 2001 and 2006 fires by the jury. However, the federal courts convicted them both as terrorists under the 1996 Anti-Terrorism Act. Judge Hogan sentenced Dwight, father, to 3 months in prison, and Stephen to 12 months in federal prison. They also stipulated to pay $400,000 to BLM. Hogan overruling the minimum terrorist sentence, commenting that if the full 5 years were required, it be a violation of the 8th Amendment. That is cruel and unusual punishment. The day of the sentencing, Judge Hogan retired as a federal judge. In his honor, the staff served chocolate cake in the court. Who don't like chocolate? On January 4, 2013, Dwight and Stephen reported to prison. They fulfilled their sentences, Dwight to 3 months and Stephen to 12 months. Dwight was released in March 2013 and Stephen in January 2014. Sometime in June of 2014, Rhonda Cargis, field manager for the BLM, and her husband, Chad Cargis, refuge manager for the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, which surrounds the Hammond Ranch, along with attorney Frank Papagni, exemplifying further vindictive behavior by filing an appeal with the 9th District Federal Court. And I hope I can adequately convey this information about how these court systems they were not in jurisdiction. And from Hal Anthony, we find felonies and breaches of trust. The Supreme Court jurisdiction is claimed by 28 U.S.C. 1254-1. So what we would find if we looked at Labor Code for Article 1, we'll see how we are occupied, and these people are occupiers. And I will remind you that as law being used by codes, statutes, ordinances, and acts is not law. Now, Am and Buddy out there talking about law of the land as opposed to these ordinances and so forth would I don't think people are getting that. They're calling them criminal. Well, like you said, saying, James, if you kill somebody in self-defense, it's not murder, and if you accidentally kill somebody, it's manslaughter. So, there's a lot of hair splitting to really get through all this. So, anyways, through a quo-born toe, I would, but according to Hal Anthony, we'd find that a court of competent jurisdiction did not exist. And this is some of the stuff that I've got links to that I'll get to probably here later. Article 1 and Article 3 courts. There we go. Let me mute this a second here and let me take this call.
That came through real muffled.
Now I was really muffled, wasn't I? Okay. Well, I should have put him on the air. That was actually maybe a call back. That was a call from prison. Okay. So where did I leave off at? They fulfilled their sentences, and there's these guys exemplifying further vindictive behavior by filing an appeal with the 9th District Court, federal court, seeking Dwight's and Stephen's return to federal prison for the entire 5 years. In October 2015, the 9th District Court resentenced Dwight and Stephen, required them to return to prison for several more years. Stephen, 46, has a wife and 3 children. Wonder who's going to work this ranch while people won't get it. I'm not going to be able to answer this and talk here, but I'll just let it go through here. If he survives, he'll be 79 when released. Now, he just had a birthday. I believe that's yesterday or the day before. So, I'm very distracted here with this phone call. So Stephen, he's 46, has a wife and 3 children. Dwight, 74, will leave Susan, 74, to be alone after 55 years of marriage. If he survives, he'll be 79 when he is released. During the court proceedings, the Hammonds were forced to grant the BLM first right of refusal if the Hammonds ever sold the ranch, and they would have to sell it to the BLM. To date, they have paid $200,000 to BLM, and the remainder of the $200,000 must be paid before the end of this year, 2015. So I don't have an update on that. If the Hammonds cannot pay the fines to the BLM, they will be forced to sell the ranch. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, if they can't pay the fines to the BLM, they'll be forced to sell the ranch to the BLM. This is classical mafia tactics. I think many of our listeners will realize that our government is a little more mafia. And I'll have to go get that to read it, but let me just give you that. I've got to do this. Yeah, this is from a fellow I went to school with, played football with back when I was a teenager. He posted this, and I didn't even tell my copy to get taken over here to World Truth. WorldTruth.org. If you're not a member of World Truth, you need to get on over here and sign up. Quit complaining about Facebook. Keep your Facebook account. By all means, use it as I do for resources. Come over here to WorldTruth.org, the server for Real Liberty Media, where your internet's from right now. So, anyways, he says it's quite easy to spot the winners. They're the ones who aren't complaining about the rules and the referees. Oh boy. Stay in line, I say. Don't be different nor complain, huh? I had to find an image for this quote. I snatched from my friend I went to school with. He's never seen. I bet he wouldn't see me as a winner, but probably no doubt a whiner. But I think we do have an obligation, don't we, to find the wrong and right it where we can, or at least try to have a conversation and dialogue. And that's part of the whole problem right here is people are too busy trying to show where anybody else is wrong and they're right, and fail to realize that we're all being wrong. So I'll continue. Oh, let me say first, that came from the Bundy Ranch blog spot, 2015 on 11 Facts, Events in Hammond Case, and also from Resurrected Republic, the truth, the full story of the federal abuse of power, unconstitutional land grab of Hammond Family Ranch. J.P. Thomas, he's on his way to Oregon now, as well. All right, so let's see here. This is going to be a little restatement of some of the other stuff. This comes from another source. Two ranchers, 73-year-old Dwight Hammond and his 46-year-old son Stephen, who in 2001 and 2006 set fires on their own property that spread public land. Let me remind you, 127 acres out there is no more than having a yard fire. If you live in the city, you'd have maybe just burning a pile of leaves or something over in the corner of your yard. And that would still be, wouldn't even add up to in comparison. 127 acres is nothing out there. We're going to get to more numbers as we come along today. Well, we're already 12:47 in. Okay, so in addition to the long-running conflict between the ranchers and federal government over control of land in the West, the case illustrates the practical impossibility of challenging harsh mandatory minimum sentences as violations of the Eighth Amendment ban on cruel and unusual punishments. The first fire set by the Hammonds, which Stephen Hammond said was intended to eliminate invasive species on the property, ended up consuming 139 acres of federal land. The second fire, which was aimed at protecting the Hammonds' winter feed from a wildfire sparked by lightning, burned about an acre of public land, although the Hammonds did not seek the required government permission. Got to have permission. Yep, follow the rules. Right? Okay, so he didn't seek government permission for either burn. The damage to federal land seems to have been unintentional. In 2012, they were nevertheless convicted under 18 U.S.C. 844F1, which prescribes a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for anyone who maliciously damages or destroys or attempts to destroy or damage by means of fire or an explosive any federal property. During the
which is why I was going earlier with that intent and the comparison between, murder and manslaughter. And that's the biggest reason why, like I said earlier, why they even being charged or why they even using the 1996 terrorist clauses in the law. The intent clearly shows that was not the target. What you just said. Sorry, go ahead.
Not a problem at all. If you can interject anytime you get a notion to. That's not a problem. So, viewing that penalty as clearly unjust, given the facts of the case, U.S. District Judge Michael Hogan instead imposed a 3-month sentence on Dwight Hammond, who was convicted of 1 count, and 2 concurrent 1-year sentences on Stephen Hammond, who was convicted of 2 counts. Makes sense, right? Those two, well, not really. When you really look at it, they shouldn't be convicted of anything. So those terms were within the ranges recommended by federal sentencing guidelines that would have applied for the statutory minimum, which Hogan rejected as inconsistent with the Eighth Amendment. In 2014, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, responding to a government appeal, decreed with Hogan, saying he had no choice but to impose 5-year sentences on both men, since a minimum sentence mandated by statute is not a suggestion that courts have discretion to disregard. And that is, I lost my spot. And that government, the court discretion, okay, there it is. And that is why the Hammonds, who had already completed their original sentences were ordered back to federal prison. This comes from Reason.com blog 2016-0104 Rancher arson case that inspired Oregon. Continuing. Dwight Hammond was about 22 when he moved to the Diamond Valley, a remote range where cattle-bearing Pete French once held sway. Hammond and his wife Susan started Hammond Ranches Incorporated, beginning with about 7,000 acres. Today, Hammond Ranches owns about 12,000 acres in the Diamond French Glen area. They use this ground to run cattle during the winter. Until 2 years ago, used 26,408, 420 somewhere. I wonder if 420 acres of land belonging to the U.S. Bureau of Land Management for summer grazing. That from OregonLive.com, Pacific Northwest News Index. Ranchers fight with feds to bark. The prosecution will have a chilling effect across the West among ranchers and others who rely on federal allotments and permits. It will harm the positive relationship many ranchers and organizations have worked to forge with the Bureau and the hard work that has been done on the range. It's also hypocritical given BLM's own harm to the range, which goes without consequence. It is unjust. OFB worked quietly behind the scenes with BLM through the spring and summer. That diligent diplomatic efforts were fruitless. BLM and the U.S. Department of Justice prosecuted the Hammonds under charges such to the 1996 Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. The government used kitchen sink strategy, charging them with 19 counts. They were found not guilty. They were not found guilty of any charges except for the two fires, which they admitted setting for their sentences. For their sentence, both served federal prison time. Stephen over a year, Dwight 3 months, and together they paid over $400,000. So I guess they paid that other $200,000 before the close of the year, as we read earlier. In the restitution, he finds the federal government. They made mistakes, broke the law, had a fair trial, paid their debt to society. I disagree with that, and that comes from Oregon FB for signed petition, Save the Hammond. Yes, indeed. I have signed that. I can't remember what it's called, but Carol Bundy had sent me an email for that to actually just to tell the federal government that they're in the wrong. But okay, so the federal government has been trying to push the Hammonds off their land. The federal government owns. Excuse me one second.
Well, yeah. Okay. Quick interjection on that one. Basically, it's the concept of broken plots. I don't know how many people out there are familiar with that, but in a ranching scenario, you had already mentioned earlier, where the rancher will have like their main ranch area, and maybe some buildings and such, and slaughtering if they're doing that as well or not. And then they'll have grazing land, which they may own some of. But the Hammonds, they depending on your herd size, you might have to supplement your grazing area. So, they have grazing permits, but at the same point in time, their main ranch was like in the valley, right? Now, up on the ridge, they had some other actual land they owned. Again, this happens to be the case of the Hammonds. They actually had land within the area that Malheur Wildlife Refuge wanted. Now, there were a bunch of other farmers throughout the years who also had land in there, and BLM basically offered a land swap. You give us the land we want here, we'll give you a piece of land over here, comparable. And a lot of the farmers wound up, either through the permit games, like has been shown with the Hammonds, or, going out of business or whatever, they ended up doing land swaps, or, they're not out of business, whatever. The Hammonds are the last holdout. Okay?
It's like Clive and Bundy. in Nevada. That's right, Clark County.
They're the last holdouts for that because of what that reserve wants. So, this is another factor in this as well. But go ahead.
Hey, I popped back over here to chat. Let me catch up real quick. Hey, James has made it. James is awesome. Love you, brother. I just seen a little while ago your wife posted a picture, and I went over and give her a like over there and scrolled through y'all's pictures and seen a couple of good pictures y'all like. James is an awesome guy. Love you, brother. Meister Brown, he has a paper that he's written that's incomplete, and but we might have to do another show and just bring him in. I don't know that we can certainly address it, I think. And I kept myself short because, like I said, I'm going to be getting in a lot of duplicate information. I might skip that because we're coming up to the second hour. Anyways, Meister Brown says that he applied for a job in New Mexico. I hope this is meant to be shared on there. Relating to ranching, land rights, native rights, water, food production. Says he figures he could do some rock hounding while working some land restoration programs or doing some tours of the land. I'm not sure where he's going to be at in New Mexico. I love the West. That has been my second home since 1969. We used to go out there for a while. Cowboy Tag, here's another great hero right there, man. Thanks for all your help you helped me with, brother. Quote, consider this. I'd like to briefly discuss to you a recent instance of Gestapo-like fishing wildlife services law enforcement. 10 abuses used against a constituent of mine, Dwight Hammond, over a simple grazing dispute. I will note this is only one of a number of similar documented cases for abuse by the Fish and Wildlife Service, and it is my hope that we will focus on a real situation like these in our attempt to rein in unjustified violations by Fish and Wildlife Service and other federal law enforcement officials. Boy, if I get to the end of it, I got some good stuff at the end of all of that, and a little bit I actually wrote myself, or plagiarized somehow or another. I am the paraphrase plagiarist, by the way. Let's see. Outside of this, my prepared testimony, I'd like to also tell you that I already read that. Oh, no, I didn't. And also tell you that Dwight Hammond and his wife Susie had the same confrontation, cons for sure, with the Fish and Wildlife 10 years ago. They went to court and they got a court injunction against what they did 10 years later. This is a repeat of something that happened 10 years prior to this time. There's James again. James says a recent video from Oregon Rep talking about these issues with getting BLM to back off different things. YouTube, if you're not in Real Liberty Media chat right now, then you're not going to be seeing these links. I'll try to maybe we'll grab them up here and put them over to World Truth, or maybe a link over on Facebook. I know James is over at World Truth. Not you, James. That might, wait a minute, that is you. That ain't the other James, is it? That's you, James. Dadgummit. I've confused you with James in Memphis. Sorry about that. So I'm talking about what you've got posted here. Alright, my bad. So, Port Hudson. Anyone? There's some more. There's Job Doctor, very interesting, James. Thank you, he says. Very on point. And I'm going to see about running on down here a little bit here.
Yeah, well, I am over at World Truth, by the way.
You did join World Truth? Huh?
Yep. I'm over.
All right. I'm proud to have you. Let's see. You've got a lot of good links in there. You've done.
I'm just trying to post the support.
Say again?
I said I've been trying to post the support as you guys are going along with the latest. To a degree.
Yeah. We've got some really good folks over here at World Truth and Real Liberty Media. Great support team. Awesome people. If you're listening now and you're not a member of WorldTruth.org, hey, come on over. Cowboy, Meister Prowl, Harry Reid owns it. Yep. I'm about to the end. I'm going to go ahead and bypass here. There's a lot of good links. And if you're not here, you're missing out. All right, so I'll go back over here. Okay, let me start here. Pardon me. The federal government has been trying to push the Hammonds off their land. The federal government owns huge swaths of land in the western states via the Bureau of Land Management, ranging from 84.5% of all territory in Nevada to 53.1% of all territory in Oregon. Federal Fish and Wildlife Service has designs on the land owned by the Hammond family, and to that end, they bought up all the land surrounding the Hammonds, and then apparently began choking out the Hammonds. This is exactly what it looks to me to have happened. Also to their access to water and grazing rights. Suffice it to say that in plea arrangements regarding arson charges to be discussed shortly, the Hammonds agreed. They agreed to give their BLM first right of refusal on a sale of their property in a plea agreement. That comes from NetNewsWire.com news. Here are 5 reasons you should side Hammond, Ben Shapiro. The timeline for the Oregon Rancher arsonist. This timeline for the Oregon Rancher arsonist developed from court documents. Information provided by U.S. Attorney's Office spokesman Gary Baden, and other sources provided by some of our loyal readers. You will find out that on 2 occasions in 2001-2006, the Hammond set fires and endangered wildland firefighters. Timeline for the Oregon Rancher arsonist. And it wouldn't take the link for that for some reason, but I imagine that information in search and fight. Now let's see here. This is a reiteration of previous statement at the very beginning here, and I think we might just bypass this all. This is the slanted side. I'll just go down and tell you where that comes from. Big timeline. Wait a minute. The timeline for the Oregon Rancher arsonist. So I'm not getting a good link here. Let me go on down. Here's some questions presented for review. Petitioners are cattle ranchers who ranch on 10,000 acres of private land intermixed with tens of thousands of acres on public land. Both were convicted of arson in connection with the 2001 fire lit to burn invasive species on private land that burned 139 acres of public land. And Stephen Hammond was also convicted of arson when back burn he lit to protect private land during a giant wildfire burned an acre of public land. So we read this earlier. This is just another link here. The fires caused minimal damage, and arguably they increased the value of land for grazing. The district court found no one was endangered by the fire. Now, the one I skipped over was very, very biased, and they took a lot of liberties. And for one that's looking to communicate more effectively and without alluding to logical fallacies and so forth. Pardon me. That one's full of them. And only obvious purpose is to persuade people that these men are criminals. So the district court concluded that the Congress did not envision petitioners when, as a part of the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996, it added a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years. So, and that is, again, it's a violation of 18 U.S.C. 844F1. It further concluded the imposition of such a sentence would violate the Eighth Amendment. So, now let's see. Because such a sentence is grossly disproportionate to the offense, and found out after 17 the Ninth District Court, the Ninth Circuit rejected the idea that the 5-year mandatory minimum term could ever be unconstitutional. United States Supreme Court jurisdiction, a panel of the Ninth Circuit, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 125.4.1. Constitutional provisions and statutes involved 18 U.S.C. 844 F1 states in relevant part, whoever, would it be whoever or whomever? See, punctuation and grammar is pretty bad. But hey, I'm working on it. Let's see. Is relevant in part, whomever maliciously damages or destroys or attempts to destroy, this is what we was reading earlier, by means of fire or other explosion, any building, vehicle, other personal or real property, in whole or in part, owned or possessed by or leased to the United States or any department or agency thereof, or any institution or organization receiving federal financial assistance, shall be imprisoned for not less than 5 years, not more than 20 years, fined under this title in Appendix Act 82.25. Factual background. Petitioner's ranching order. Did I do this class? No, I didn't. Maybe not. Okay. Petitioners came from a long line of cattle ranchers. Their ranch, Hammond Ranches Incorporated, is on Steens Mountain in southeastern Oregon. They call it a cow-calf operation. Each year, it breeds its own cows with its own bulls, and attends to birth the cows in spring, moves the herd through numerous private and public pastures over the course of the spring and summer, and sends a majority of the calves to market in the fall. So they'd be what you call fat cattle that go to feedlot. Let's see. What is this? IDHRI is always operated. Oh, that's the Hammond Ranch Incorporated, HRI, is always operated on a combination of private and public lands. As of 2006, over 10,000 acres of private pasture and had a Bureau of Land Management permit authorizing to graze cattle on tens of thousands of acres. So just remember that 120 or 139 acres, whatever it was, compared to tens of thousands. It'd be more like spitting in the pond. All right. So the grazing permit authorized it to pasture about 18 bulls and 374 cow-calf pairs, and the calves don't count. The combination counts as part of that 374. So the mama cows calve off. Generally, like I said, you want your cows to be your calves early in the spring, where they're sucking milk, and then about the time the grass is green enough, they're going to wean off, and so they're going to walk them through the year, and then they're going to send them to feedlots where you can get you a good steak or ham cooking. Over various allotments of public land over the course of the year, as is common in Eastern Oregon, private land is interspersed with public land, and fences separate the two only in a few places. Here's the convictions. 17 June 2010, the government charged the Hammonds a 19-count indictment. We read earlier that they were only convicted there of these two fires. And let's see. Involving numerous range fires occurring in a 24-year period from August 82 to August 2006. On May 17, 2012, less than 30 days before trial, the government filed a 9-count superseding indictment focusing on 4 separate fires. District court sentences that the trial court's advisory guideline calculations were undisputed on appeal. The advisory range for Dwight Hammond was 0 to 6 months imprisonment, and the advisory range for Stephen Hammond was 8 to 14 months in prison. The trial court concluded that the petitioner's offense conduct was not that contemplated by Congress when it added a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence to the 18 U.S.C. 844 under the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. That's public. That's a public publication there. Considering the nature of the arson statute, the person, there you go, statute, not law. As law. Used as law. Remember that. Okay. The purpose of the penalty provision added to that statute the nature of conduct underlying the petitioner's convictions or personal characteristics. Pardon. And the advisory guidelines, the trial court indicated that it would not impose the 5-year mandatory minimum sentence because to do so under the 8th Amendment, which that's just rule 9. The government appealed from the district court sentences, and a panel on the 9th Circuit rejected the notion that the imposition of a 5-year term of imprisonment would have been unconstitutional. I had a judge tell me one time he was not one bit interested in justice, but the letter of the law. Yeah. That's thank you, Bar Association. You criminals, you real pirates.
If they were really that interested in the law and the constitutionality, I mean, come on. Constitution flat out says the land that they can have 10 miles in D.C. They can have some land for military bases, and they can have some land for forts. And really, why does our system basically allow these guys to continue to make laws and then sign them into supposed law without a constitutionality check before they're signed into law? Well, my feeling on that is, well, once already in the law, we already know the kind of hell it is to try to get them removed. It's a long, protracted, drawn-out legal battle, and who can afford that but the rich? See, to me, it's an ass-backward process that, when you want to make sure it's constitutional before you sign it? Yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I believe they were coerced, coerced and forced. One second. Excuse me. After the court received the partial verdict, it directed the jury. Wait, I think I missed part. Maybe I left it out in my copy and paste here. Anyways, I believe I did that. The jury couldn't come to, could not concur on all the charges. So, if I'm remembering what I read earlier, after the court received the partial verdict, it directed the jury to continue deliberating. During deliberations, the parties agreed to resolve the case with partial verdicts. Their agreement was oral, not written, and the terms were placed on the record note of court. Prosecutor. My understanding is that Dwight Hammond Jr. and Stephen Hammond have agreed that they would waive their appeal rights and accept the verdicts as they had been returned. Thus far by the jury. It looks like I left the Y out there. And that comes from landrights.org or Hammond v. United States, Oregon petition for writ of I did not look up writ of Satori Ari.
Certiorari. Where's certiorari? Yeah, that's what you were trying to say.
Yep, thank you. And I did have some other stuff that I'll have to go retrieve. I think I'll do a real quick copy and drop it over here and pull that up too for when I come back to these other legalities. Writ of the Supreme Court. I'll do fine. There we go. I'll just grab that for right now. And I'm getting pretty close to the end here. So,
it's pretty much in there in his court docs. It pretty much suggests that Stephen and Dwight, when they were going to make that agreement, they were pretty much, from what I interpret and read, they were under the assumption that during that Hogan sentence, and this again is the reason why the guys decided to just take the findings at that point in time. They were under the impression that it was done and over with there. And then if you read those docs, the bullshit that Pataggy tries to pull when they go for the resentencing stuff, it's bullshit. But go ahead.
Yeah, and quite literally. But there's not near as much dung on the range, I guess, because they're running them out. They want to capture these foreign occupiers, and that's what this government is. They're foreign occupiers, and we are the enemy, and they are at war against us. Believe that. If I'm not doing a good enough job explaining it, I invite you over Sunday afternoons for some lessons from behind the woodshed, Real Liberty Media. Sunday afternoons with Hal Anthony. I really got a lot of respect for that man. So now I've come up here. Go ahead.
Really, I mean, if you look at most of the alphabet soup agencies, they're created by charter. They're independent corporations. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just like the post office, just like the Federal Reserve, just like so many other agencies, IRS. There's a very long list of what people assume to be federal agencies that are in fact private. So now I get down here past all of that, and I thought I probably ought to include a little bit. And I did not find all the information I wanted to on this, but this Paiute claim. All right. So we read earlier that there was a reservation without engines. Well, it's just hard to know what to say. Being politically correct. I know you ain't supposed to say engine, right? Native American, Aboriginal. Certainly not Americans. These are all just names, and mostly they're used against us. So I'll just call them the Paiutes, and I'm going to try to let me back up here a bit. Okay, after decades of war encroachment and expansion by settlers, President Ulysses S. Grant set aside a portion of this land as a Malheur Indian reservation for the Northern Paiute tribe on September 12, 1872. The new reservation was for all the roving and straggling bands in eastern and southeastern Oregon, which can be induced to settle there. Just like they done, they run the Cherokees out of back east in Carolinas and Tennessee, and they hurried up everybody over into Oklahoma, and it's the same old thing. And if the Indian, you don't be hating on white folks. I mean, we're being done the same way. So these treaties, they're not honored, no matter what your
the Lakota. Did you see the response from the Lakota?
No.
Yeah, Lakota. If you understand Indian tribal stuff, when they get together and have a vote, it's a pretty big thing.
Wow.
Lakota got together and they had a vote concerning this stuff that's going on in Oregon. They voted to support guys in the refuge. They voted to support the guys in the refuge. I'll see if I can't pull that link up and toss it in the chat.
Cool. Got that? Hey, I know that's the talk. Of course, everybody probably knows that word's from. All right. So let's show you. Trying to induce him to settle there. Oh, Captain Jack Stronghold's up there in Northern California, there in that Lava Beds National Monument. I've been there. He was probably, I guess, one of the last holdouts. Great hero, opposing the struggle against the oppressors. So don't think I'm anti-Indian or nothing like that, because, like I said, I mean, we ought to be seeing natives come together and also make an occupation, and perhaps if with the Al-Qaeda, you know what, I take that handle, and I'll take that on myself. I kind of like it. People try to make fun of country folks, but yeah, I like it. So anyways, you wouldn't be another wounded knee if you'd show up out there. Hey, we don't have to have the same agreement on everything in order to stand together, and that's what it's going to take. I mean to tell you, there are so many people trying to knock everybody for what they're doing instead of taking a stand for themselves. Now, whether Eamon has got it all figured out there, or it was a last-ditch effort that somebody put an idea out, hey, let's just go down here and sit down here and make a stand. Who have they harmed? They have not harmed anybody. As far as I'm concerned, there's no laws broken, and it should be happening more. More people should be taking a stand. I spent enough time out in Bunkerville, sitting talking with Ammon Bundy, with his dad Cliven, and Ryan, and a bunch of other great folks out there. Granted, I can't testify for all the folks out there, whether there's any provocateurs or whatever, but looks to me like, that's neither here nor there. We don't need to be distracted and dissuaded from taking a stand against this evil that is against us. But let me go ahead and go on with these. The government's stated aim was that the reservation would put an end to ongoing conflicts between white settlers or, people that are stealing the land by decree, and natives, but predictably relegating the northern Paiute to a particular area gave encroaching settlers and corporations greater opportunity to seize the Paiute's ancestral lands. Paiutes are pretty widespread. I mean, you've got Paiutes up yonder, and you got them down in Nevada. I went to school with Paiutes in Moapa Valley, just right, not a far piece from where Clive studied his family and ranch is out there in Nevada. Didn't rode the bus with them. We go through the reservation out there. But anyways, the Paiutes are pretty far spread. There's Utes, Paiutes, and any number of people that would go back and eventually probably find a common ancestor or perhaps where they've intermingled or pushed another out. And, it's like me being American. Well, I've got so much different blood from, there ain't no way unless I had a DNA test probably to ever be able to determine all that I am. I'd say mostly white European descent. French Huguenot for certain. My family came to Virginia in 1680s. I'm 11th generation. 1850, my family came to Arkansas. I have to be born over in Tulsa, but still, I live here in Arkansas. I consider myself Arkansas here, not an Arkansas. Okay, but that's probably just been Yankee here, sir. Okay, so anyways, they almost immediately following the establishment of the reservation, settlers started clamoring for a modification of the boundaries. We want more. Typically, the U.S. government served as the vehicle by which land was stolen from the natives. Absolutely. It's like they're stealing it from the ranchers now. So it's like, I'm going to be so mad because I got ripped off. I want him to get ripped off too, I want you to hit him because you hit me. I want you to lock him up because you locked us up. Crybabies. Quit crying, man. Stand up. Use your voice for something besides whining. Stand together. Don't be hating on the Bundys or anybody else out there. I mean, you don't have to take part in it. Find your own stand. Take your own stand. Make your own occupation. And that could be literally or figuratively. I'm not advising you to break any of these statutes or codes or ordinances or acts. Nothing like that. So writing in the Indian County country today, Steve Russell summarized how the Malheur Indian Reservation was dismantled. Ain't no Indians living out there, I don't reckon. And the Indians in California, and certainly I'd say up into Northern California and Oregon, that there's a lot of Spanish blood that they're not even true. It's like I'm saying about myself, mixed blood. They're white, they're mixed Spanish, there's no such thing as race anyways. We're all merely separate isolation of genetic material with certain traits. So anyways, white settlement nibbled at the Malheur Indian Reservation until the Bangkok War in 1878, which ended with surrendered Paiutes and Bannocks on the reservation being removed. I wonder how, if that was Captain Jack involved in that. Officially, I bet it would be. It's, 30 years ago when I was up there. Officially to the Yakama Reservation in Washington Territory. So that means they shipped them plumb on up into as far away from their home as they could. So unofficially, Paiutes had scattered all over the western states that comprised their aboriginal lands. The Burns Paiute Reservation is the remains of Malheur Reservation and the Malheur Wildlife Refuge is an alternative use for federal land for those who believe federal government exists. The Bangkok War was an Indian uprising that forged an alliance between the Paiute, Bannock, Shoshone, and Shoshone tribes, fighting settlers and the government in the area. Unfortunately, the tribes lost the war, and as Russell explains, the tribes were forced to resettle in Washington State. This month marks, what's the date on this? This is 2016-113. Okay, so this marks the 137th anniversary of the government's forced march of 500 Paiutes in shackles. You know, Paiutes ought to be coming together with bunnies out there and say, hey, look here, Mr. Federal Government agencies, and all y'all other criminals. So they in shackles over 350 miles in knee-deep snow. Can you imagine? And that's what them boys out there at the reserve. I mean, they're in snow. I reckon it's knee-deep right now. But can you imagine the inconvenience that those men are doing? And you know what? Well, are they doing it for themselves? Well, I don't know. Maybe somebody has some type of ulterior motive, but I would say to endure such as they are enduring, that they are standing up for me and you and our sons and daughters that have not yet even come to this world, and defending against the tyranny. So, if you don't like what they're doing, find you something to do. Right? Today, individual members of the Burns Paiute tribe own more than 13,000 acres of land in Harney County, which is home to the Malheur refuge, and through fragmentation of this ownership has hampered efforts to use the land. That comes from socialistworker.org and titled, Who Does Malheur Belong To? Okay, we're really getting really about the very end here, so we'll have about a half an hour nearly to discussion and probably take some phone calls. Might Brown get you to call in and add maybe some questions. Statutes, acts, ordinances, and codes are not laws. They're legislative rules of a society. Legislative rules of a society are given force through law, while precede rules. Maximum law, that is. Government can only control what it creates. The power which is derived cannot be greater than that which it is derived. And that is the 16th Amendment, jurisdiction, Constitutional Law, Section 70. Okay. No public policy of a state can be allowed to override the positive guarantees of the U.S. Constitution. Owen versus Independence, 100-volume Supreme Court reports, 1982, Maine versus, I think that might be Thibault, Thibout, however they pronounce it now. Thibodeau, not Thibodeau, that's Kuhnel. 100-volume Supreme Court reports 5202. Now, I've got the WordPress here that's got all this information if y'all are interested in further research or adding to it by any means. So 1982, the right of action created by statute relating to the deprivation under color of law, that's a felony, or of a right secured by the Constitution and the laws in the United States. It comes claims which are based solely on statutory violations of federal law and applied to the claim that claimants had been deprived of their rights in some capacity to which they were entitled. And that's going on with the ambulance. Criminal. These people need to be held accountable, the true criminals. Officers of the court have no immunity but listen to this, officers of the court have no immunity when violating constitutional rights from liability. Any public service violates your rights, they do so at their own peril. Statutes, acts, ordinances, and codes are not laws. And here we go to the very end. We're giving up Real Liberty Media Daily. Check it out. Visit our website for more Liberty News, www.reallibertymedia.com, and check out our page on worldtruth.org. That is worldtruth.org/reallibertymedia /. And put your H's and your T's and P's and semicolons and forward slashes and all that. And we are the safest and most secure social network, worldtruth.org. Come on over. And now, Wow, look at there. We run through the end. I did skip that long section, but it was, like I said, it was a reiteration of much what had been previously stated, except for that had a much greater bias. Definition of certiorari, petition for writ. It's a Latin word meaning to be informed of, to be made certain in regard to. It is also the name given to certain appellate proceedings for re-examination of actions of a trial court or inferior appeals court. Now, I've got to refer you back to Al Anthony again. All right, where they are outside of the court of competent jurisdiction. Quo warranto. You need to examine the difference between Article 1 and Article 3 courts, possibly even 4. Challenge this U.S. Supreme Court jurisdiction and realize that the Libre Code, Article 1, is in effect. We are and have been occupied nation. And that's just not just saying some things to be saying things. This is fact. Now, if I'm not presenting this well, because I don't got a full grasp on all myself, and that's why my life is all about learning more and more. Stand where I can. Let's see here. I'll have to grab these up. Here. I'll put them in comment, and I'll have to grab them, repaste them. Here we go. This is from Law Cornell. James, let me hand you the mic if you like, and I'll go grab these links here, and I'll reopen them up, and I'll come back here in just a minute. And I'll hit a mute if you'd like to take it, or it looks like Flash is flashing in there. If any of you fellows would like to add anything, please.
Well, all I've got here is synopsis and the big acquiring stuff to me, and then, we haven't really gotten much into what's going on with Ammon and the protesters. So that's really all that I'd be going into. What about you, Flash?
Oh, I'm just listening tonight on this.
Wow. Kind of
I'm opening up some stuff here. Oh, you know what? Last Sunday, Hal Anthony really addressed this a lot. And also, I believe it was Tuesday, it was over at our Republican Broadcasting Network with John Statmiller. I think you pronounced his name. That was an excellent show. And I also found, if you're on World Truth one time, I also found an excellent. I've been doing some serious house study here, and I normally do every 6 days a week. Have a lot to listen to. I think he's one of the most intelligent people there is, and he actually has a method and system to address these aggressors. So that's what we need to do, and do so rightfully so when we can. So we may be in frustration, and people are making fun of him for going out and occupying a bird sanctuary out in the middle of nowhere. Well, what better place can you think of to go out and make a stand where nobody's going to have to worry about you getting hurt? And as Pete Santilli said about that judge's daughter, I forget the guy's name posted. Yeah, I think he did prostitute her out, and that's the way it is. Emotions. It's not. There's not logic. We're creatures of emotions, and no. That's why this is no time for rational thinking, right? So, very fitting. Flash came up with that name, and I liked it the first time I heard it. So, January 10th, reallibertymedia.com. Go to Behind the Woodshed Blogcaster, January 10th, 2016. And that is at the Situationally Aware, Action-Oriented Intelligence Center of Evolutionary Engagement. Victory against you and the silent war is your consent. So here, show notes with how we got identifying the pretenders and by deception or incompetence. That's a look at the Oregon militants. Walden takes BLM to the woodshed. Congressman Walden, I believe that is. Up there in Oregon, militia leader Emmett Benny met with the local sheriff to discuss ending the standoff, and he told the sheriff, he said, "Look here, Betty, we'll escort you to the state line." Emmett says, "I ain't got no intention to leave." And it's destruction of the West. Who's to blame? Department of Homeland Security giving states 2 years to meet Real ID Act. Lots of good information. Al Anthony really lays it out. And if you've not heard him, I can't tell you nothing. So then we got nuclear neighbors and suspicious knowledge in opening Pandora's box, and that refers to that guy. He used to be Attorney General, Texas Governor down there, Greg Abbott. Yeah, he's been stealing from me for a while, actually. Infringing arms, High Court, no constitutional right to carry a knife in Seattle. You see, where was it? Carolinas, they're trying to define the military to be that which is defined by state. So I think you lose your power there. And there was another state, Mississippi, that's looking at possible ramifications. And thank you, Jane. That was a couple of years old, that one, the link was. And we had one more issue that I do not recall. Green scheme death. Aussie Green power scheme collapses. Australian newspaper reports that a rising cost climate fatigue and rising. This is a new religion, and this is the new money coming. Carbon credits. And if you do not comply, you'll probably die. And all more great stuff. And hot diggity doge. That's the weekend war report from Al Anthony. Don't forget your Doge War coins there. It's Doge World, ain't it, Grimner? Thanks, Grimner. He's the man. I can't imagine how much work he puts into Real Liberty Media, because it is a fantastic site. Great place to broadcast from. I obviously amateur. Flash and I have been working on our thing here, and we made the point when we started. We'll do what we can, where we can, and I don't even have to worry about taking that to Real Liberty Media chat room there, because everybody knows how to handle. Okay, habeas corpus act. So Alex suggested perhaps the habeas corpus would be warranted, and that is an act for better securing the liberty of the subject and for prevention of imprisonment beyond the seas. Whereas great delays have been used by sheriffs and other officers whose custody any of the king's subjects have been committed for criminal or supposed criminal matters, in making returns of writs of habeas corpus to them directed by standing out an alias and flurries habeas corpus, and sometimes more by other shifts to avoid their yielding obedience to such writs, contrary to their duty and the known laws of the land. We are on the land and not the sea, by the way, but we're dealing with an occupational force, according to the Lieber Code, whereby many of the king's subjects have been and hereafter may be long detained in prison in such cases whereby law they are available. Well, you can really get a lot of stuff here in maybe we could find us a lawyer one time, come to put this together, get maybe Al Anthony. So listen, there's a lot to read there, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to grab it, I'm going to copy it, and I've got it on World Tour, so I just let me go here to Firefox, and I'm going to drop that over there into Real Liberty Media chat, reallibertymedia.com. There's that one. Now, go back over here to this accessible site. Kill that one. Here's for quo warranto, Latin for by what warrant or authority. A writ quo warranto is used to challenge a person's right to hold a public or corporate office. The state may also use a quo warranto action to revoke a corporation's charter. And most people will not realize that the United States is a corporation. It's the corporatocracy, corporation nation. Indeed, it is that which is against us. I don't think it ain't. Let me go up this as well. James, do you you have some content for Ashley?
Couldn't swear I heard my name, but I didn't hear much else. Wow.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. You didn't hear me?
Everything right now all of a sudden just got really like muffled bad.
Well, I'll be done. All right, I'm looking for a good one here. Technical Journey Journal. No, I was looking for here we go. Cornell EDU. I like that. And here's this one that I have a hard time pronouncing. Certiorari. Did I say that right?
The certiorari. Yeah. You're close.
That.
Good enough.
Close enough. I'm not going to be arguing in court anyways, right? And so let me see here one more time. I think, did I keep typing? I'm going to leave that one open. So it looks like I've got it all.
You guys are in water that I didn't dive into. I mean, I didn't go into digging all the walls and apart. I just looked at some of the stuff that, the framing, for one. They pretty much tried to vilify the Hannums from the start when they pulled their little bullshit with the comments about the clown that you guys wrote about earlier. See, if that right there shows intent, and they're just trying to make the Hammonds look bad. And that goes along with the framing of the media. And I've seen this. Like in a situation with Hammond and the guys at the refuge. I mean, they've been called terrorists. And they haven't done what happened at some of the regular protests. There's, no rioting. They're not breaking shit. They told the initial story with things that went on there, too. That, it's a siege. Well, what do people think when they think of a siege? This is mental manipulation that the media pulls all the time. You're thinking siege, and right away people are thinking that, they went in guns blazing, or, they went in with guns raised, and, they kicked people out, or, they did things to people, kicked in doors, and all that. And we all know, after doing the digging, that's not the case. I mean, we're already going into getting near the end of the second hour here. We had a little bit of a slow start, but we're not even to this stuff yet. CNN with the whole, sheriff offers peaceful resolution. All right, well, psychology again. They know that the predominant people that even bother paying attention to newspapers and news, online or in front of them, they scam. That's how they get the news. If something interests them, then they might go into reading the full write-up of what was behind the title, but, they're talking about the sheriff offers a peaceful resolution. Okay, so the scanners, if things go bad and things kick off, right away, they're going to remember, the sheriff offered a peaceful resolution, the guys in the refuge were assholes, and, they didn't take it, so, if they were to listen to the sheriff, everything would be okay, so whatever happened to them, their own fault. See how that manipulation works? And then there's stuff with the town, doesn't support them. And then we see YCs where we can hear with the meetings, the town is asking, hey, how do we get care packages out to these guys? Well, if that's not community support, I don't know what the hell is. Then there was another one where a guy ended up at one of the official local government meetings and was saying about, was a little apprehensive when they first got here. Yeah, kind of, but you know what? They're here. They're bringing some attention to things. I'm not sure I want them to go home yet. Again, if that's not public support, community support, what is? There's so much that, the media framing of this even, from the Hammond's case and, all this extra stuff that we've gone into with, the conflict of interest between Malheur, wildlife manager, and the PLM person that was responsible for some of this stuff, and management being married. the USGS Geological report that I posted in the chat that shows that there's uranium underneath that land, there is natural gas, there is gold, there is coal, okay? Precious gems, too. So, we all know what that's about. And they got a bunch of people out there that are trying to say it's not funding too low for this or that surface reason. Well, how about we start looking underneath the surface? What's underneath the land? And when you go that route, it is pretty much exactly what it was about the Bundys and so many other ones that are going on with the ELM that's involved right now. So, anyways, go ahead.
Indeed. So here's, if you're on Facebook, here's a Bundy Ranch protest for 1214. Corey Gunnels, I believe this is probably her group. It's a closed group, so if you're on Facebook, this is a very good source for information. Let me go back to my Facebook page. I want to give some proper attributes here. Thank you, Dorsey Artist, Vera Barrows, and Becky Haynes. James Sanders, thank you, brother. Let's see, and Eva, and let's see.
And Josh was on the one week that he was sick this last week we were on. Michael was on,
Connolly, is that how you say his last name? But was on Tuesday with us. That's a pretty intelligent fellow right there. He has a lot of good information to share.
Oh, he knows a lot of his legal stuff. Yeah, he does.
Like
he knows a lot of stuff.
Senator Spooner, thank you, Blake Speed, Junkie, Rocky. Where I'm looking for Thomas this link.
Well, while you're looking, the other thing I'll toss out, the other thing we saw in the news too, concerning Amon and the militia was, the town was in fear, and militia were poking around and this and that, something else, and this brought about the fire chief's recent resignation as well. He ended up following some guys around that were doing this. They started out the armory and this and that. He was following them while they were doing his thing. He comes out. I think it was one of the Nevada reps, I forget her name, but Chris Ann Hall posted it, because she's going to be up there now, too. For
Michelle Fioria is her name. Michelle Fioria, she's an assemblywoman in Las Vegas, I think District 4. Great lady. She came out to the Bundy Ranch. Her and a lot of other good people. We're many of us here at Real Liberty Meeting might tend towards less government, the better government type of anarchical type of thinking. But there are people that are trying to occupy places that have traditionally that are seats of decision that are used against us. So, like Lonnie Clark, UCY.TV, she was on this morning following Jules from before the first cup. That's great radio at UCY.TV, y'all. That are not familiar, and I'm sure most of y'all are. She's unapologetic, bleeding heart liberal, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't care if you're right wing, but I've got a problem when sometimes when people try to use their philosophy against somebody else. But that's a different subject. But I've got nothing but respect for anybody, even if they're on the opposite side of an issue with me. As long as the person's willing to do a self-examination, then I think we all definitely owe that to ourselves to do so, to make sure that we're not just being parrot people. We're really, honestly, we're at a point in time in history where there may not be, for future generations, there may not be a history to look back on, and it's certainly not a history of accuracy. History is written by the victors, and there is a war against us. I don't care how well off you are, what position you hold. You're not going to be any more better off. What?
there was a control in what you're talking about, and I'll share this one, already established well by 1953, and it has been literally a war of the mind. And a lot of things not been told quite factually. Certain things been left out. And that 1953 control that was already in place has created decades of books with specific views. And there are certain views that have been removed, okay, that were not presented and are not presented in order to hide various things. And this control was simply book stifling and quarantine. And for those of you that, are listening and you're kind of on the fence post about, there couldn't be such this huge control thing. Oh, yeah, it already well existed. And Senator Jack Breckinridge Tenney wrote about it. But anyways, he's right. There's a lot we think we know we don't know, and it's because of that control that they've already been using way back then.
Yeah. I completely went off track here. One of the most wonderful persons that I know in this world, Thelma from across the waves over there. She's in Cali. Awesome, man. I hope that my universe will work out to be able to meet out that way on the way to Oregon. But wonderful person. There's been a lot of people. I went 2011. I started a journey to go out and change the world and to convince everybody how wrong they was and how right I was. And I found that I was the one changed more than all, and more than anyone. Wait a minute, I can't type this off. I found that I was more changed than anybody, and there's some people that I sought out that were what I would say diametrically opposed in ideology of my own, and I found what I found a lot of was how much we are saying the same thing, only different, right?
Yeah.
And okay, so I'm just completely trying to type and talk, can't do it. Now on air, and then I can go back. That's saying hi to you. So anyways, love you, Tony. You're an awesome person, and one of the people that I owe a great deal to as far as my reasoning and examination of the world about us and what it is that we exist in, what is and what it is that is against us, and a truly wonderful person. Doug Larson, he's on his way from Vegas up to Oregon, and he'll be reporting to me here after he gets settled in up that way. So hopefully this next month or so I'll be headed out west myself. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'd like to be there.
I'd like to be there, but there ain't no way I'm going to be able to.
Okay. She is such a wonderful person. And you know what? I have contact with so many people that are. I mean, that people have specified. Most people have kind of focused in certain areas, right? So I have go-to people that when I'm looking at a subject, I can go and give a good examination, get a good starting point to, at least, and I'm not afraid to look at any subject. And I think what we need to do more than anything is question ourselves. And where it is where we are taking our stand. Okay, so I think that's probably one of the. But I don't think I grabbed this article. I'm going to drop this. I think I missed this one in the chat. This is I've never been to this site, Ballotpedia, the Encyclopedia of American Politics. So this is probably not a good site, would be my guess, but it's at least a place to start. So on Article 1, Judges, United States Tax Court. If I remember correctly, that there was some type of dispute about the actual legitimacy of this. organized under Article 1 of the United States Constitution. Article 1 courts differ from Article 3 courts, which are organized under Article 3 of the Constitution. Article 1 courts are created by the legislature and have differing levels of independence from the executive and legislative branches. They can be Article 1 courts, also called legislative courts, set up by Congress to review agency decisions. Ancillary courts with judges appointed by Article 3 appeals court judges or administrative agencies. And I think there is some probably some collusion here and also contradiction as far as how these are interchanging. And that goes back again to the to felonies and trust breaches and also court of competent jurisdiction. So that from Hal Anthony would be advice for the Hammonds to examine that they should be released from prison immediately, and by bringing the proper response, then this is where we can't go in there and knock the gates down and pull them out, rescue them. We've got to address the aggressor in their own language, and when one comes to understand it, I think it's easy to do. So, anyways, I'm going to grab this and drop it off into Real Liberty Media as well.
I can't open them.
We're coming up in the hour. James, great having you on. Do you like to tell folks where they can find you if they're on Facebook? And now you're over here at worldtruth.org. So I ain't even seen if I found you there yet. What's your handle over there, brother?
Chogards, PA.
Say it again.
Chogards, PA.
Yeah. All right, do that. It's a little hard time.
Link my Facebook in there too.
Right on. Yeah, do so for sure.
So it's in chat. I had also posted IE on there too, but I help admin, so that's in there as well.
There
over there, man.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go send it over to you here in just about a minute and go make sure we get hooked up over on worldtruth.org. Thanks, Grammy Mayor, for worldtruth.org. Thank you, Graham Nerfreeman, for reallibertymedia.com. Shout out, I'm side by side over here next to UCY.tv. Channel 24 from Real Liberty Media. Great bunch of folks over there. There's the A-Tracks. What's up, brother? Shout out to everybody in. There's Cowboy. Thank you. Yes, thank you, brother. Let's see. We've got, you're going to give it to me. Look at there. Asmo, Barman, Bestie, Cowboy, Tech, Dark, Rome, Scrimmner, Keith, Grammy, she's at work, Apostle, Flash. That's my co-host, my co-cap, my brother right there, Flash somebody. I be done. James, that's you. Wanted I could go? Master Brow, Oslo, Real Liberty. We got a couple of anons there, 5077 and 56. Wait. 50577 and 56760 Anon Real Liberty Media Chatters. The A-Tracks, not 8-Tracks, not cassettes, not VHS, but the 8-Tracks. And he's rocking it out tonight. Grammy Mary's on tonight. Grimner and Moose Girl. Woo-hoo. Y'all stick around. Hang out. Come on. There's me, Vince also. Not asshole. World Truth, Real Liberty Media Events, UCY. I see why. UCY. There's Grammy. Ha-ha. Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. We're coming up. Say goodnight, Gracie. Who's Gracie? Gracie? Is that your dog?